And we're back now with a Fox 5 exclusive, a nightmare phone call for a father. His deceased son's body found decaying in a funeral home instead of being cremated like he was told.
And now those...
Absolute terrible crime. Absolutely a terrible crime that if it happens, which it should never happen, but if and when it happens, people are going to be emotionally distraught when it comes to their loved ones' remains not being handled the way that they are supposed to, or the way that the crematory or the funeral home was instructed to handle them. And the reason it's they can file a lawsuit because this is a specific cause of action. This is a specific legal remedy that can be had. Is there any criminal culpability? We'll talk about it. I think there may be some, but let's go ahead and let this video play through, and then we're going to rap about the legal consequences on the civil side, what concept they're using to file their lawsuit, and how could this potentially be criminal.
Phone call for a father. His deceased son's body found decaying in a funeral home instead of being cremated like he was told.
And now those parents who still do not have their son's remains are the latest to file a lawsuit against that business. Our chief legal correspondent, Kitty Barlow, has been following this story. Kitty, what's the latest now?
Remember, I want y'all to pay attention to what was said. Remember, as co-counsel, words are life. Listen to what they said about the people, about the attorney that was, about the lawsuit that was filed.
Do not have their son's remains are the latest to file.
They are the latest to file a lawsuit. That's going to play in big. The fact that she said they are the latest to file a lawsuit leads me to conclude that this crematory has been doing goofy shit for some time now if other people have filed lawsuits.
Lawsuit against that business. Our chief legal correspondent, Kitty Barlow, has been following this story. Kitty, what's the latest now?
Well, Chris Parham and LaQuanda Brown were still mourning the loss of their son, Koisier, who died at just 2 months old, when Chris got a call from Maryland State Police. The officer told him he had been the victim of a crime, that they found the body of his son decomposing at Heaven Bound Crematorium in White Plains, Maryland, still in the clothes from his funeral with a teddy bear by his side.
I would be fucking livid. I'm sure they were, but I would be absolutely pissed. Somebody would probably like, hey, no, try to do everything the right way. But I could see somebody seriously getting their ass whipped for doing something like this. I mean, it is completely unacceptable.
Funeral with a teddy bear by his side. This despite the funeral home delivering to them a set of ashes. And to this day, they still don't have the remains of their son.
Well, I feel like with any parent, you just can't get enough of kissing them and hugging them. You know, I feel like those moments go a long way. When you just think about, you just always expect that I'm going to get a chance to kiss them again tomorrow.
Koisier was just starting to engage with his parents when he passed away, according to LaQuanda. She says it was shocking to find out his body was still in the crematorium. A visceral reaction after the body she worked so hard to grow and deliver was not returned to her the way she was promised. Heaven Bound Crematorium has been mired in accusations of misconduct since 2017.
2017. Misconduct since 2017. We're in 2025. Why the fuck are they still allowed to operate? I have questions for the licensing authority that you need a license to do everything. Like back in the day, you could be a plumber or cut hair. Now you need a license. Everything is regulated because the state wants the money. If they've been mired by these type of things since 2017, I have no clue how the hell they're still in operation.
When the Maryland Death Services Oversight Board found evidence that it was not properly storing human remains. They were shut down in January after state investigators found human bodies in cardboard boxes stacked on top of one another, with arms and legs hanging out of body bags, along with bodily fluids and blood leaking onto the floor.
This is fucking ridiculous. Throw them in jail, sue the fuck out of them. I would love to see them get the $20 million that they are suing for, but I really don't think that's going to happen because I'm guessing that the people who own this funeral parlor are a few things: incompetent, criminals, lazy, and they probably are tapped out financially.
Governor Wes Moore opened an investigation into the state's oversight board after Heaven Bound was allowed to continue to operate despite those numerous red flags.
Governor Wes Moore, let's give Governor Wes Moore a round of applause. Give him a round of applause because he did exactly what I said should be done. Hey, Maryland, just like a lot of other places, have a huge budget deficit, but this is something that Governor Wes Moore got right. Launch an investigation into the licensing board because there's no way that they should be allowed to operate.
LaQuanda and Chris had no idea Heaven Bound would handle their son's ashes when Stewart Funeral Home in D.C. assured them that they would be taken care of and treated like family.
That's interesting. So they went to a funeral home in D.C. who agreed that they would handle everything, and somehow that job got tasked to this trash ass funeral home in Montgomery County. Meanwhile, let's listen to all the people who are involved in this. Now I see the picture a little bit clearer now. Let's go and finish up because we got a few seconds left. Then we're going to talk about it.
Now they feel lied to and desperate for answers about their son's remains.
The fact that I did carry him for 9 months, and he was my only boy, my first boy. And then the way he was just forming to look so much like me, and I'm not even gonna be able to experience like his first date, know what his favorite color was. It just everything all at once. Like when you just thinking about it, it's just like I would never get to know what kind of person he would be.
All right, real quick. I don't know if they talked to an attorney before this interview, but this is actually not a good interview for them. So let me rewind. Let me actually go ahead and zoom out real quick. But this is an absolute. It's not a terrible interview, but it's not the interview that I would want my client saying if I'm filed the lawsuit against several persons.
The couple is suing Heaven Bound along with its owners Rosa Turner and Brandon Williams and Stewart Funeral Home here in D.C. Fox 5 has reached out to all of the defendants for comment. We've not yet heard back.
Okay, so let's talk about it. I'm actually going to downsize that because we may want to look at that interview, the last part again, because I want to tell y'all why that it wasn't a bad interview, but it wasn't an interview that I would want my client to give. So, young couple had a child passed away. They go to a funeral home in DC. They're assured that this funeral home, this crematory, will do what the family wants done with the remains. And they said, yo, we're going to treat you like family. This funeral home essentially contracts the job out to another funeral home that's in Montgomery County, Maryland. This funeral home in Montgomery County, Maryland is trash as hell. Since 2017, they've had allegations of mishandling corpses and doing the wrong things. They've been looked at by the licensing board. They were shut down because they had bodies in boxes. It just gets absolutely crazy. Funeral comes up, I'm assuming at some point in time, the young couple receives ashes that they believe are those of their baby. Then they get a call from law enforcement saying, you've been the victim of a crime and we found your child and their body is here decomposing. And the same stuff that the child had on during the funeral with the same teddy bear in their arm. Now, absolutely terrible. I'm assuming that this funeral home is probably broke as fuck. I think the funeral home is probably broke as hell, considering that they had so many problems since 2017. So funeral home A, the funeral home in Washington, D.C., who was supposed to do the job, is named as a defendant. Funeral home B, the funeral home who screwed everything up, is named as a defendant. Now, I personally think there should be another defendant here. Let's talk about it. Let's go and get this comment real quick. Yep, reckless endangerment of a child. The funeral home has a hidden illegal practice that has been constant and consistent. The owner and embalmer should be placed under the jail. They knew better. I agree with you 100% on that, Gary. I actually think because again, I didn't even watch the whole video. I didn't watch the video. I just kind of knew of the story because I saw it on the news, but I didn't know all the details. But the very first question I had was if this funeral home had these issues since 2017, why are they even still operating with multiple lawsuits going on? I actually think a third named defendant should be the state. I would name the state licensing board as a defendant as well. Now, again, the state is always going to try to say, do we got some immunity? Can we weasel our way out of it? I'm telling y'all right now, I would name this. I don't know who the attorney is. If the state has some legal mechanism potentially where they can remove themselves, but no, I think the government, I think the state of Maryland is probably the biggest perpetrator of this, because if this place has been having issues since 2017, it's 2025. Had the licensing board done their job, this place would not even be operating right now for this not to happen. So I would say that the government, the licensing board, is the actual proximate cause of all of this. But for your mistake in allowing them to continue to operate when they should have been banned from operating years ago, this wouldn't have happened. That would be my argument. And the best part about it is I'm sure the state, even though the state of Maryland is broke as hell, but their pockets is a lot deeper than funeral home in DC. Their pockets are probably a lot deeper than this funeral home that has these multitude of lawsuits. So that's how I would frame my complaint. Now, the cause of action that they're going for on the civil side is essentially a tort, is essentially negligence. We went through negligence before, but negligence has a couple of other names to it, but it's still a negligence claim. Negligence, in order to prove it, there has to be a duty of care. You have a duty to act in this manner. There has to be a breach of duty. You breached that duty that you were required to use or show. There has to be damages, loss of income if it was a car accident, emotional distress, those type of things, actual punitive damages. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So it has to be a duty owed. It has to be a breach of duty. There has to be damages. And the defendant's conduct has to be the proximate cause of the actual harm. What that means is they call it a but-for test. If we were saying for the funeral home, we're charging the funeral home with this negligence, is actually called wrongful handling of a corpse, but the legal analysis is a negligence theory. Funeral homes and innkeepers, hotels, they have a higher duty of care when it comes to negligence because their job is directly related to customer service. So that's why this is broken out as an actual civil thing that you learn in law school. But they call it the but-for test. Did the funeral home have a duty to owe to the client? Yes. Did they breach that duty? Hell yeah. Both funeral homes breached the duty. Funeral home A breached the duty because they informed the client that they were going to do the job and they punted it off to somebody else. Funeral home B breached the duty because they just didn't do the damn job at all. It just left the damn body there like some assholes. So clearly a duty, clearly a breach of duty, clearly emotional damages, some type of pain and suffering. And was the action of the defendant the proximate cause? But for the conduct of the defendant, would this harm have happened? If the answer is no, that means that you have a viable lawsuit. So if we did that same analysis, they need to include the state of Maryland in this, that same analysis. Did the state of Maryland licensing board have a duty to make sure that they were properly vetting crematories and funeral homes to do the job right so that they can make sure people got the services they paid for? Everybody's going to say absolutely yes to that because it's obvious. Did they breach that duty? This place has been under the gun since 2017. Bodies and boxes, arms and limbs and ass and snot and shit hanging out everywhere. Yes, they clearly breached that duty by not doing the job, and the police officers found this poor child's body. Did they breach the duty? Was there damages? Absolutely, there was damages, emotional damages galore. And was their conduct the proximate cause? But for the state giving this license out when they should have, would this have happened? The answer is actually probably no. I think it's a great argument. I think the government has deeper pockets than anybody. Throw their ass in the lawsuit as well. Yep, funeral home violated the custody and control. You are 100% right on that, Gary. Again, funeral homes have a higher standard of care. That's on the civil side. On the criminal side, a lot of states has codified that civil analysis to a criminal analysis. Why is it criminal? Why did they codify it? Because essentially it's fraud. That's essentially what it is. Essentially, it's a fraud thing, just broken out under a different name. Person who owns a funeral home or a crematory, they charge $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. We'll take care of your family and do the right thing. They get the body, they disregard the body, they destroy the body the completely wrong way, in a way that's completely illegal. It doesn't cost them anything to do whatever the hell, bury the body in their grandmother's backyard. They hand the client ashes from newspapers that were burnt, and they just took in $10,000 and didn't even have to waste any money or spend any money on the cost to do what the family actually wanted. So a lot of states has codified that type of scheme into criminal charges. So they're definitely looking at criminal charges. Now, I want to rewind this real quick and tell you why this interview, I get it. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have said anything, but generally, I don't do interviews. Generally, if something like this happened, it's not a good idea to do an interview because you're emotional. You're not going to be at your sharpest. You're going to say what's exactly on your heart, and the family is within the right to do that, but it's just something that could potentially be problematic. So let's go ahead and pull this up. I'm going to rewind it back, and I'm going to tell y'all why this was not a good interview. I'm going to play it all the way through, then we're going to talk about it. But y'all let me know, what do I think? If you were their attorney, what was bad about this interview? Not saying it was the worst interview. I mean, I don't think they'll be at issue. I think people understand. But if I were their attorney, I probably wouldn't have had them talk, or I would have read a statement on their behalf
about their son's remains.
Fact that I did carry him for 9 months, and he was my only boy, my first boy. And then the way he was just forming to look so much like me, and I'm not even gonna be able to experience like his first date, know what his favorite color was. It just everything all at once. Like when you just thinking about it, it's just like I would never get to know what kind of person he would be.
The couple is suing.
Again, all right. Now, that is not the worst interview, but there's some things that I don't like about it. One, I think whoever filed the lawsuit, whoever the attorney was, he should have read a statement, or at least gave them a statement for them to read. Well, not read, but I would have probably just did it if I was the attorney. And they just stand in the background and just look how I know they feel inside, which is absolutely terrible, which is 100% valid. The reason I don't like the interview is because what they are talking about isn't the focus point of the actual lawsuit. Now, it's not going to harm their case, but they're talking about the actual loss of their son. Rest in peace to the little one. But they're talking about the loss of their son. What I would push a statement if I were drafting a statement it would be talking about the loss of their son, but it would also, and more so, talk about the trauma and the pain that was caused from the actions of the funeral home, from them finding out that their baby can't even rest in peace because his remains were not destroyed property. They just left him there as if he was nothing, as if he didn't matter to anybody. The state didn't care about its own citizens because they allowed these guys to continue to operate for years when they knew these people had multiple lawsuits and multiple allegations. The thing that I would have driven home, and I think that, again, this isn't the worst interview, but I think it was missing a component. But I'm not faulting them for it because this is fucked up. I feel bad just listening to it and talking about it. So I'm not faulting them for it, but their focus was on the loss of their child, and that's a part of it. But the other part of it is after the loss, we can't even start we can't even go through the healing process, and we're still in this grieving stage, and now it's just compounded by what this funeral home did and what the state did by not doing their job to allow this. That shit should have been driven home. I think that would have been an amazing point. Even though it wasn't driven home in an interview, there is absolutely no way that a jury would disagree with anything that this family is saying. I mean, you have to be a cold-blooded, calculated person, a monster, to think that no. This is a jury is going to be on their side 110%. I don't care how the interview went. I think that this government should be named as a defendant because I think that they lost or they breached the duty of care. I think that they were negligent. And you can bring a civil lawsuit against a state entity. They have a Torts Claims Act that allow people to sue government entities for negligence for a tort as if they were a person, so to speak. Desertion of a corpse and disposal of a corpse violation. Yep. And shout out to you. I appreciate you chiming in, Gary, and giving me the insight because I'm just talking generally. I didn't actually look up what the statute was. I was just giving an overall broad perspective. But that's an absolute terrible story. I don't know. Like, I don't know the financial status of each of the two funeral homes that were sued. Funeral home A may be the funeral home that they went to in DC, may be in a better financial status because we didn't hear anything about them being absolutely fucking terrible at their job. Funeral home B, who actually did this heinous act, probably if a business is run like that, I don't think that they're doing the right thing with the money. The chances are very slim. So I think that this lawsuit should be amended. If their attorney is watching, if there's watching, this lawsuit should be amended. They should look at a Torts Claim Act against the state licensing board. It actually would help their case that Governor Wes Moore launched an investigation into the licensing board. And again, as the accountability episode, somebody should fucking lose their job over this. A lot of people should lose their job. A lot of people should lose their money over this because this is terrible and a travesty. Yeah. What's going on, Harley? I appreciate you tuning in. But I don't know. This story is absolutely terrible. Let's see. I don't know. That's actually a good question. That's actually a good question. If there are any bidding contracts. I don't know. That's a good question. I'm trying to think. Have I ever seen... I don't think I've ever seen such services under a contract, a government contract. Not saying it can't happen. You probably can do it. I don't think I've ever seen that. I don't know. I don't think what I can say is I've never seen it. Not saying it's not possible. It is plausible that there could be some type of government contract to perform certain services, but generally, crematories, funeral homes are independently operated. Now, what type of government programs have I seen when it comes to these type of things, funeral homes, crematories, is when it's a result of a violent crime. I know because my brother passed away as a result of a violent crime. Now, they do have government programs where they'll reimburse you the funeral cost if the decedent passed away as a result of a violent crime and they didn't do something to contribute to that act that led to their untimely demise. So I don't know. I can't see a government entity being contractually obligated to be in this type of game. It's just too much risk involved. If I were general counsel somewhere, I would highly advise against it. But that is a good question. It could be possible. I've never seen it done, but it could be completely possible. Absolutely terrible. But y'all let me know especially with the last two stories. I think everything else we all kind of got a consensus on. But in those last two stories, y'all let me know in the comments. I think that two things should happen. I think the charges should be brought against the adults for the toddler who fell off the 15th floor of an apartment building. I'm so happy that baby is still alive and going to live to tell the story one day. But some of the adults in the room should be held accountable. And when it comes to our last story, the mishandling of a corpse, from a criminal perspective, send these assholes to jail. But from a civil perspective, do you think that the state of Maryland should be a named defendant because their licensing board allowed this terrible crematory to operate, even though they've had complaints, they had numerous lawsuits, they had bodies just thrown in boxes and shit was looking all crazy. They've been letting this place operate like that since 2017, since they've been mired in all of this controversy. I think everybody's probably going to say that yes. I think that Maryland has the deepest pockets, and I hope that somehow this video makes it to the family. Somehow this video makes it to the attorney. I hope that that's an option that they consider, filing an amended brief, adding them as a defendant. That's it for this video. As always, I'm grateful. I'm appreciative for y'all tuning in.